So once I noticed the signal, the temptation was quite obvious. I wanted to make it happen. That's what we do, right? At least that's how I do things. And we find something that feels meaningful and we just try to control it. And at first that didn't work. The moment I tried to produce the state, it just simply disappeared. No goosebumps, no settling, and no internal shift. Just nothing. And that was frustrating because it forced me to confront something uncomfortable. This wasn't a trick, it was a technique. It didn't respond to effort, it responded to orientation. So instead of asking, how do I make this happen? I started asking, what changes when it does happen? And that one question changed everything. So I began paying attention to what preceded the state and not the state itself. What I noticed was subtle again, but again consistent. So the state returned when I wasn't chasing it. I wasn't emotionally rehearsing. I wasn't trying to fix anything at all. I wasn't narrating my experience. It just showed up when I got out of the way. It's as simple as that. And that was the paradox. The more I tried to be intentional in the way I'd been taught, the more it disappeared. The more I relaxed into awareness, the more reliable it became. And that's when repetition started to matter. Not repetition of sensation, but repetition of internal conditions. And there was a posture to it. It wasn't physical, it was internal. A kind of quiet attention that wasn't tense and wasn't passive either. It felt like listening without waiting for a response. And the more I returned to that place without any expectation, the more consistently my body responded. And then that's when it stopped feeling random. That's when it stopped feeling imagined. Because imagination doesn't repeat like that, does it? Coincidence doesn't organize itself, but this did. And that realization came with a responsibility. Because once something is repeatable, you can't pretend it was an accident. And then I noticed something else too. The state wasn't just a moment. It actually affected how I moved throughout my day. I was less reactive, less defensive, less compelled to explain myself, and that was big. Not because I was trying to be calm, but because my baseline had shifted. A baseline, what's a baseline? Apparently we all have one. I didn't know this at the time. Things that used to trigger me didn't land the same way. I still noticed them, but my body didn't escalate, and that was new. And it mattered more than the signal itself, actually, because what I really wanted wasn't an experience, it was stability. I needed stability back in my life. And I wanted to know if I could return to myself, not just touch it briefly, and slowly, carefully. Guess what? I realized I could. Not perfectly and not on demand, but reliably enough to just trust it. And trust changes how you live. Because once you trust your internal state, you stop outsourcing your sense of safety. And that was the real shift. Not the goosebumps, not the sensation, but the realization that my body wasn't chaotic. It was trainable. And that meant everything I'd been taught about control was completely backwards. So I didn't need to force coherence. You know what? I'll be honest, I didn't even know what coherence was. Are you coherent? Yeah. Are you listening? Yeah, that type of thing, but not the way that I come to learn to understand coherence. And I needed to stop interfering with it. But I want to say this clearly. Repetition wasn't about mastery, it was about humility. about learning when to step forward and when to step back. And once I respected that, the state returned on its own, again and again and again. Not to impress me, but to simply remind me that something inside me already knew how to regulate if I let it. And that realization changed how I relate to my body. And it set the stage for the next question, the one that I just simply couldn't avoid anymore. If this is repeatable, how do I stay honest about it?